So, what's going on again? We are going to continue on our tutorial for truck making. This time we want to talk about how to get lights in the game. So, headlights, not a bush bar, tail lights, what are those? How do you do them? So on and so forth. I'm starting here with an example of a stock truck from the game. As you can see, the textures look absolutely insane. And I apologize for my mouse not showing last time. I guess I forgot to turn that on. But see your textures in Blender once you have your model open. You take your mouse up to this top right corner here. So you could go top left corner, you could top left corner of this window, or you could do top right corner of this window, or really the top corner of any of these things. If you grab it and start to pull, it'll duplicate that area. So to see the textures of this guy, you first have to go to the shader editor. That shows you all the things that have textures on them. So you have your main color texture, which is attached to base color. You have your alpha layer, which is an instance of this texture, I think, attached to alpha. And then you have your normal information, which is connected to the bump texture. So the main color texture and the bump texture are most important for texturing. As I showed in the last video, the main texture, if you go look at it in the UV editor up here, let's see, let's click on the body, hit tab, hit all, it shows up, and then I'm going to hit tab again. This is impossible to use. The main issue here, zooming out a bit, is that it's just getting the top left corner of the actual color texture. I think it's doing that because of the indexed format. I don't really know. So what I've found in practice is the best thing to do is go to your shader editor, go down to the UV, or the bump map, excuse me, and then look at the UV editor there. This has the correct size. It doesn't have stuff on it, so how do you remedy that? We'll talk about that eventually, but one thing you can do is open up GIMP and open up, excuse me, the textures corresponding to the thing that you're working on. All right, so here's our bump texture in GIMP. It looks pretty see-through. And here is our indexed color texture. Excuse me, it has layers of transparency as well. All the windows are transparent, yada yada. So we're trying to deal with lights. I see some lights down here. I see lights here, 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 here as well. So we will see how all that stuff comes in. So what am I saying here? On the inside of Blender, we want to look at the different lights and see where they're mapped to on the texture. And then we want to see what they're called as well. So all of the lights that we care about today are the ones that are called lights. So light BL, that's important. That's your back left light. Notice it's mapped to this whole section of the car, which is interesting. But it is its own thing, so you can hide it away, and notice the body doesn't disappear there. So the back left light, it also seems to be mapped into a different place than the back of the car. So we have our light BL, we have our light BR, those are your brake lights. Brakes left, brakes right. What's next? FL, if we spin around, it's your front left light, left of the car, if you're facing forward, and your front right light. Maybe it's fog even. Those could be your fog lights. Either front or fog. Those are things that are like day running lights. So you got your front left, your front right, You have your headlight. So you have H, L, and HR. Those are either head left and head right, or high left and high right. I don't know, but those are appropriate names for things for headlights. And then finally you have your reverse lights. So spinning back around, all the reverse stuff, it's essentially the same model, or the same mesh, whatever piece you're using to texture your lights there. Okay, so those are the things we're allowed: back left, back right, front left, front right, head left, head right in my mind, and reverse left, reverse right. So reverse left and reverse right come on when you're backing up. That just lights up the backup light. Your brake lights glow when it's dark out. Maybe when the lights, when it's not dark out too, and they even glow more when it's lighter. When you brake. And your headlights are generally always on as well. So let's try and get these things in the game for our model. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to mention was, where are these things mapped to? Let's look at where this right headlight is mapped to in this stock example. Hitting tab and pressing A selects all of those faces that you need, and then we look for it over here. Notice, in the main texture, it's insane, we can't tell anything, so we go over to our bump texture and we look there. Aha! So it's mapped to this section of the texture in the bump texture. That is just completely transparent on the bump texture. And then going to GIMP, where we can see what is up there. Haha! You see the headlight is mapped up here. And yeah, you can see it's nice and bright white. So it's bright white, but like very transparent, even on the main texture. So bright white and transparent on the main texture, and then completely transparent on the bump texture. That's kind of what you're going for your lights. You need transparency so that the light can shine through those model parts. I don't know if you have to make them transparent or not in Blender, or if the texture is enough. But I have made them transparent so far in Blender. All right, let's look at the backlights really quick, and then we'll do our own stuff. So one more example, hit tab to close all that stuff up again, spin around. What's the back left look like? So this is your reverse left. Let's look at back left. It's in the same area. Hit tab, hit A, and see it shows up in this area on the bump texture. There's nothing there on the bump texture, so it wouldn't be possible for us to map this here. What do we do instead? We look at GIMP. What's there on GIMP? Aha! On GIMP we have some lights there. Lights and transparency. So the only thing that whole section that's mapped on the back of the car, the only thing that cares about is seeing this back tail light with some transparency through it, and on the bump side of things down here it's completely transparent. Okay, so we're gonna emulate this same thing with our textures in order to get our lights to show up and to glow. All right, this on the main texture here seems to not be red enough. It is transparent. If you go to the bump texture, looking at the tail light, just for comparison, the tail lights are not as transparent. Notice that the entire bump texture is pretty transparent. There's the alpha layer. So this is fully transparent in these corners where your lights are going to be. And then where your textures are, it's a little less transparent. And where the windows are, even less transparent. So put the blue-green stuff back in. If you take the alpha away, it looks like this. Okay, so that's the bump map versus the actual color texture. my recommendation is when you're working in Blender, I think it's useful to not convert this to indexed, and then I think Blender will see your color texture as the right size. You can work with that, and then you convert it to index later and put that file into the pod, and everything will be handled. But when you're working in Blender, keep this RGB, and then I think that I think Blender will be happier. So we can do a test with that. All right, so let's get to our tercel here. So that's the basic idea. You need transparency on your bump map for your lights, and you need just bright backlights for your other stuff. I don't know why they don't, I guess I do, yeah. So anyway, notice they didn't cut out the tail light, especially it would be like here or something. They just mapped this whole side area as the light. So we'll follow that same method going forward. We are working on a tercel with 1L. Here we go. I've already done a bit of work to make sure that I can get this working in the game myself. So, for example, what do I have so far? I think I have all the lights in here. I have my body. That's the first thing we did in the last video. And I have all my lights now. I have my headlight on the right, so my high light on the right. I have my high left. Spinning around down the back, I've experimented a bit. I have this where I actually map something to the faces that are on the vehicle. I have that for a reverse light. I have this ugly thing for the backup light, and this for another reverse light. So let's mess around with this and see how I got it to work. All right, we're looking at the bump texture here. Let me see what, or you can tell just from the mapping here that my color texture just is silly. If I show you here in the shader editor, click on the color guy, connected to color, and look in the UV editor, it's not right. Can't even get it to show really. So Blender does not like this. The best practice is probably to keep the RGB color texture until the very end. Okay, so boom, boom. There we go. So let me tell you how I got my headlights and stuff. It's very easy. So let's just hide all this stuff. All I have showing right now is the body. How did I get my front right headlight here? Hit tab, go up to face select mode here, select two of the faces and duplicate them. So Shift D will duplicate, Shift D. Don't move your mouse around or everything will move. Hit escape. And then right click on that stuff and separate it from your model. So separate the selection, boom. And there you go. You just made a new body part. When you hit tab, you made a new body part right here. And it's just that headlight. Boom. And when you do this process, it will be mapped onto the file in the same place as the headlight was. So hit tab over on this side, hit A, and if you look over here, where did it appear? Boom. It appeared where the headlight is. Okay, so your light shows up where the light is mapped to already on the texture that you have. And you go around, you do that for the other headlight. For example, since this is the front right headlight, right? It's the front right headlight that we are dealing with here. We should name it light HR. So that I already have, light HR. hide this thing. Light HR, that's exactly how I made it here. There it is. Light HR is that guy. You can do exactly the same thing for light HL. So show this guy. Light HL is, oh, sorry, that's the reverse. Light HL is here. Going around the back, I was able to successfully do something similar here. So if I hit tab and I am on face select, what I did here was I just did like a selection tool thing like this, and I wanted this face as well. Boom. I thought that would be cool as like my brake light. It turns out maybe I want to modify that a bit, but that's what I ended up using as my brake left light. So I selected that stuff. I duplicated with Shift D. I made a new instance and so on and so forth. So let's go over and do it for the right one. So brake left is already taken care of here, right? That guy's on there. Brake right we need, because I don't like this one. I don't want it to look like that. I'm actually going to map it on my car and see what happens. So I'm going to get rid of this thing, delete, and from my body I hit tab, select. Well, let me see. I'm just going to use the selection tool. So select all this stuff. I have all these faces. I am going to Shift D, escape. That stuff has been duplicated now, but nothing has appeared. How do we make it appear? Right click, separate by selection. There we go. Now I have my body part. Hopefully I don't have 10 million copies of my light there. This I want to be light back right. Boom. Or maybe it's brake. B for brake. Hit tab. There you go. So now we got our brake left, we got our brake right. Let's see where this thing is mapped to. Aha, okay, good. So the brake light is mapped where we want it to be, to this section of the texture with the brake light on it and the reverse light on it. And we would also need a reverse guy too. So if we wanted to just keep this thing as the reverse guy, I have my reverse right here. I don't really like how it looks. So I'm gonna just kill that guy off. Delete. I'm gonna take my brake right there, and I'm gonna duplicate this. So if you do Shift D on a part that's not separated like that, you get another instance. Oops. Get another, hitting escape cancels whatever movement you accidentally did. And notice when it's all together as one piece, you get another instance of it. I'm going to call it not light brake right, but light reverse right. Over here, we can compare the difference with my reverse left guy in the game. So there's my reverse left guy. Let's see on the texture where reverse left is mapped to. Hit tab, select all, and it's over here. Notice what happened. The UV editor switched to the main color texture, so we need to go back to the shader editor, grab the bump texture so we can actually tell what we're looking at. Go back to the UV editor, and I have it mapped here to this white part. Okay. So, one final note before we talk about getting this thing into the game. If we go to our Evo folder where we had our truck file saved, I should change the name of this thing. So Tercel is with one L. Toyota Tercel 1L. Save that. And then scrolling down to the light section, all the way at the bottom is where you find your lights. So I have 6 lights, 2 headlights, 2 tail lights. Those are the BR and BL ones. And then your reverse lights. So 6 lights total. Light 0 and light 1, light 0 and light 1, those are headlights. They have type 0, both of them. When you look at the way they're facing, the number of radians they're turned, headlights have been turned 0 radians. All right? And I suggest you use stock light information here because, for example, the truck file I used for this car had only 2 lights and everything was messed up. I don't even think the front lights worked. So I just deleted all the light stuff from that file. I took a stock truck. I took this Dodge Durango thing I was showing you earlier. I copied all of its light information, 6 lights, exactly the ones I want. I paste that into my file. Once you understand what's happening with those 6 lights, maybe you can add more lights and do more stuff. Okay, so type 0 is your headlights. They face in the forward direction, which is 0 radians. The pitch and stuff I am not worrying about at the moment. Okay, lights 1 and 2 are there. When you look at their body position, the first coordinate is left and right. So we're -2 feet from center to the left. We are like 1.5 feet up, and we are 7 feet forward, I guess, in the coordinates of Evo 2. And notice it is, the position is relative to your body size, I think, the body of your car. Okay, going down, we're 7 feet to the right, 1.5 feet up, and 7 feet forward. So essentially the same position, just you get a negation for your 2 headlights. They're equally spaced from the center of the body. Scrolling down, lights 2 and 3 here have type 1. Those are your brake lights. How many radians are they turned? 3.141593 looks familiar. Pi. So 180 degrees says they're facing backwards, these light sources, because they're brake lights. So your brake lights are like this: 2 feet to the left, 1.5 feet up, 7 feet back. Light 3, same thing. 2 feet to the right, 1 foot up, 7 feet back. I'm not sure which is which, and notice that it doesn't mention any part of the model name or anything like that. So what I have found in practice is you really have to have all of the light pieces inside your model. So looking up here on my stuff, you have to have your 2 headlights in here, so HL and HR. You have to have your 2 brake lights in here, BL, BR. And you have to have your 2 reverse lights, reverse right and reverse left, which we will have soon, if you're going to have 6 lights here in order for them to work. All right, 2 and 3 were your brake lights. They were type 1, type 1, type 1. Finally, you have your reverse lights are type 5, type 5. Those only turn on when you're going in reverse and it shines a white light. Again, they're facing pi degrees, so that means they're facing to the back. And again, 2 feet to the left, 1 foot, or almost 2 feet up, 7 feet back. So almost similar position as the brake lights. I think you just have to get close to where it is on the body, and then Evo lights up that section of the body model. And it doesn't have to be perfect, so I think copying the stock stuff was good enough for me. I think all of these are exactly what are in the Durango, and my car is clearly not as big as the Durango. It does look like I had to move them back a foot. I don't know if I had to do that for them to show error, if there was some other error, but you might have to play with these numbers a bit. There's no way the widths are exactly the same, so there's a little flexibility in those coordinates. All right, so that's the positioning of your truck lights in the truck file. And then the other thing you need to check while you're troubleshooting before we open up the game is that your textures are transparent where your lights are, because Evo wants to shine light through that model part. So you open up GIMP and comparing, with what we saw on the stock stuff, these tail lights are transparent, like on the main color texture, and the headlights are transparent on the main color texture. So you need transparency there. On the bump map, they're fully transparent. So let's see what I did with my stuff. Opening recent, I need my base color guy, and I need my bump guy. Notice I've made my bump guy sort of transparent all over. I think I can probably completely cut out the tail light section here. I don't need that at all for the bump guy. Here's a headlight. I could cut that entirely out so that it shines through better. I don't know the effect. Eventually, maybe I'm gonna just have a fully transparent bump map. I don't know. We'll decide on that later. But for now, like a semi-transparent bump map works. What did I have to do to get that working? Well, I had to go to my channels. I had to deselect red, green, and blue so that I'm just working with my alpha texture. And then I had to delete that thing. So I had to go Control A, and I deleted the whole alpha texture. Oh no, it looks like everything's gone. It's okay, that was just the alpha. Notice it turned black from gray. And then I painted with my bucket some white, and I set the opacity to around 50. Boom, everything appears again, okay? So my bump texture is essentially see-through. That's how I did it from my main texture. This has been working so far. On my color texture, we saw, compared with the stock one, the taillights need to be see-through too. So over here, and it didn't matter much if these ones were see-through or not. So on my color texture, I made the taillights see-through. You can kind of see some speckling there. How did I do that? You go over to your channels, you look at just the alpha texture, and boom, what do you notice? There are two spots that are cut out. Those are my taillights. So with the channels, the index guy on, I selected the taillight section, and then just working on the alpha section, I cut those out. And then notice this is kind of black, so I filled in with black instead here with opacity until it was just kind of see-through. So you can make that more or less see-through as you need in the tweaking, but you do need transparency both on the main color texture and on the bump texture for the lights to shine through. Okay, all right, so those are the ingredients. What did we decide on in Blender? What did we say? We got our back left, we've got our back right, we have our reverse left, we have our reverse right, and we're just gonna see what it looks like. All right, so tabbing out here. What's my reverse right map to? I hit tab. Oh, hold on. Reverse right is here. Okay, reverse right is mapped here on my texture. So it's mapped to red and white stuff. We'll see what difference that makes. My reverse left guy here is mapped over here, just on the reverse portion. And then my brakes are mapped in the same way. So with the transparency, with all the parts named here, and with like close coordinates in the truck file, these things should show up in the game. One more thing I will say before we jump in the game. So we should export this. Since we changed some stuff, I'm going to the models folder of my Evo game. I'm copying over my Tercel main file. I'm going to save my Blender file as well. And the other thing I had wanted to say about those textures in here, in GIMP, was that on my color file, I had to go in and artificially color this by hand more red because it was just so bland in the original texture. It wasn't really showing up nicely. I artificially colored this white. I used the paint tool for that with some transparency. That's why this was red before. So I just kind of painted this more red here. I painted this more white. Same over here, more red and more white, so that they would have more pop in the game. Still keeping it transparent. Okay, so let's go see what we ended up with, if it's even working. We go into our Evo directory, we fire it up, and hopefully we're good. All right. This tutorial brought to you by Weekend Vibes IPA. Yay. Enter quick race. Snake River Canyon, my favorite. I'm working on a Cybertruck. I got all the lights working on there now. Yay. I learned something through these tutorials. Scrolling down to the very bottom, let's try our Tercel. Look, it's spelled right now. Look at the insane stats. It's a four-wheel drive Tercel. 2,800 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. 1,000 torque at 7,800 RPM. It weighs 3,700 pounds. Hilarious. All right, so that's our guy. Let's go race. Oh no! What is happening here? It's saying it's missing an act file. What could that be? That's what happens when you forget to select to use V1 materials. Okay, game crashes. We need to get back to Blender. We need to export again. How many times will you do this in your life? I'm still doing it, so hopefully less than me. Use V1 materials, export your model, and then try and fire up the game again. Okay. And now we're waiting again. Cheers. Don't want the Cybertruck. We want the Tercel. Hey, it loaded. Okay, cool. And what do we notice? The brakes are very, very bright and ugly, but they're working. Yay. All right. So that's kind of what you should see if your brake lights are working. Obviously, it looks like very horrible, but the point is to get stuff working in the game. And then you can do all your editing and fancy stuff later. So the brakes are lighting up. You can see when I'm reversing that the white gets brighter. When I go forward, it turns off. Braking. Let me see. Braking. When I brake, the white lights up because it's part of that model that we've included. When I reverse, we would want the white to come on more. So the lesson to learn here is you don't want to include the white part in your brake model. I think my solution will be to make that section of the model skinnier this way to see if we can just have the brakes be lit up, and then we'll have the reverse turn on later. On the left hand side, what do we see? Some craziness. So yeah, I don't know. I think the brakes should maybe just be that just that top section, and then the reverse could be the bottom stuff maybe, and that would work for us. Or the brakes can be that top section and the reverse could be everything. So that is quite bright. It looks good. If you think it's too bright, you know, because our car is like so dark, and darken it up a bit, but We got them working. What about the headlights too? Spinning around, there you go. You can see the headlights are on. And the headlights are easy to position. There's like two little glows that are out there in the front. Like they almost look like orbs or something. And for my Cybertruck, for example, they were like back on the hood, so I had to move them forward. On this car, they seem to be like in a good position. So I'm gonna leave them. All right. So we got our brake lights working. We can make fine-tuning adjustments. I won't do that in this video. Hopefully you get your lights all working too. Let me know if you follow along and do so. Give me a like, say hello in the comments, subscribe if you want to. And that is all for today. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.